When the sky split open, they thought the danger was over. They were wrong. Dawn arrived slowly over Orlaith, not with brilliance, not with thunder, but with a quiet shift in the sky. High above the city's white towers, the grid shimmered. Golden lines stretched across the heavens like an enormous web of light. For centuries it had remained stable, unchanging, predictable. A perfect lattice that regulated the flow of magic across the realm. But now, something within it had changed. Silver threads moved through the gold lattice, not tearing, not fracturing, interweaving, alive, responsive, breathing. As if the sky itself had begun to awaken, the city of Orlaith stirred beneath it. Market lanterns dimmed in the early light. Merchants rolled open wooden shutters. Stone streets echoed with the quiet rhythm of morning footsteps. But something felt different. The air carried a tension few could name. Not fear, not danger, but awareness. Mages preparing their morning incantations paused mid-gesture. Runes flickered unpredictably before stabilizing again. Healers in the temple wards felt subtle shifts in the energy flowing through their sigils. Even the city's oldest scholars hesitated, because the grid had always behaved with precision, predictable, measured, controlled. Now, it responded, high above the city, standing on the eastern balcony of the Sovereign Tower. Leora watched the sky. Wind moved gently through the marble arches behind her. Strands of dark hair lifted across her face. Her posture remained calm, still. But beneath her skin, something stirred. A pulse. Soft. Familiar. The silver thread. It moved quietly through her veins, responding to the shifting grid above. Not resisting. Not forcing. Aligning. Behind her, the balcony doors opened. Soft footsteps crossed the stone. Kaelan approached, without urgency. Tall, broad-shouldered. His presence carried the calm confidence of someone who had stood beside danger many times before. But even he paused when he reached the edge of the balcony. His eyes lifted toward the sky. Silver and gold. Interwoven. Moving. Alive. For a moment, neither of them spoke, because neither of them had words for what they were witnessing. Finally, Kaelan exhaled quietly. The grid has never looked like that before. Leora nodded. No, she replied. It hasn't. Below them, the city breathed. Not quieter. Not louder. Different. Magic moved through Orlaith like water beneath stone, flowing, adjusting, learning. For centuries, the grid had been a structure imposed upon magic, a framework, a regulator. Now, it felt like something else, something that listened. Leora rested her hands lightly on the balcony railing, cold marble beneath her fingertips. Her eyes moved slowly across the horizon, because beyond the towers, beyond the distant hills, she felt something else stirring, faint but unmistakable. Threads, hundreds of them, perhaps thousands, scattered across the realm like distant heartbeats, responding. Far beyond the visible horizon, magic had begun to wake. Morning spread across Orlaith. Sunlight climbed the pale stone towers. Gold reflections shimmered across the city's canals. But the grid above remained different. Silver veins continued weaving through the golden lattice. Alive, responsive, balanced, yet unpredictable. Across the city, scholars began quietly recording the changes. Arcane observatories measured fluctuations. Temple wards recalibrated their protective sigils. Council archivists filled parchment after parchment with observations. But none of their conclusions matched, because none had ever seen magic behave like this before. Near midday, a messenger arrived at the Sovereign Tower. He did not linger at the outer gates. He did not speak to the guards. Instead, he was escorted directly to the inner chambers. His expression carried the unease of someone delivering news he barely understood. In his hands rested a single parchment scroll, sealed in black wax. Kaelan accepted the message at the chamber doors. The messenger spoke quietly. Reports from the eastern provinces. He hesitated. then added, "Unmarked awakenings." Kaelan's gaze sharpened. He broke the seal and scanned the parchment quickly. His expression darkened slightly. Then he carried the report to the balcony, where Leora still watched the shifting sky. He handed her the scroll. "Multiple incidents," he said, "across several regions." Leora read silently. Her pulse remained steady, but the silver thread beneath her skin flickered softly. The report listed several names, locations, witness accounts, and one repeated phrase: unmarked individuals demonstrating spontaneous magical resonance. "They're responding," Kaelan said. "To what?" he added. Leora folded the parchment slowly. Her eyes returned to the horizon. "Not to something." She paused. "To someone." Across the realm, something had begun answering the sovereign thread. By midday, the council convened. Inside the high chamber of the Crown Hall, voices echoed across vaulted ceilings. 7 elders sat in a semicircle of carved stone, each representing centuries of magical authority, each sworn to protect the balance of the grid. But today, their voices carried uncertainty. Reports had arrived from across the provinces. Farm villages, river settlements, remote mountain towns. Each report described the same phenomenon: unmarked individuals, awakening. "They must be contained," one elder insisted. "The grid regulates magic for a reason." Another leaned forward sharply. "If these awakenings spread, control will be lost." A third elder spoke more cautiously. "Or perhaps the grid itself is evolving." Several heads turned sharply toward him, because that idea carried implications none wanted to acknowledge. Leora stood quietly near the chamber's edge, observing, listening, not interrupting. The silver thread beneath her skin pulsed softly again, and for a moment, she felt something impossible. Threads beyond the chamber walls, threads across the city, threads across the realm, all faintly aware of each other. The council continued debating long into the afternoon. Containment, investigation, suppression, observation. Every elder proposed a different response. But none addressed the deeper truth. Magic itself was changing. Far from Orlaith, in the shadow of a mountain pass, a lone figure crouched beside a weathered stone outcrop. Wind rushed through the narrow canyon, cold, sharp, unforgiving. The figure's hood hid their face, but silver threads danced faintly around their fingers. Uncontrolled, untrained, yet unmistakably alive. The threads coiled like serpents responding to unseen music. Because somewhere far away, the sovereign thread had called, back in Orlaith. The central market experienced a strange moment of silence. It lasted only seconds, but everyone noticed. A ripple moved through the air, subtle, like the quiet tremor before distant thunder. People paused mid-conversation. Children stopped running. Even the city's animals lifted their heads. The grid flickered softly above the rooftops, silver lines responding to something unseen. High in the tower, Leora felt it instantly. Her pulse aligned with the tremor. The thread beneath her skin glowed faintly. Not commanding, not controlling, responding. Magic itself had begun to listen. Evening approached slowly. The sky above Orlaith deepened to violet. Lanterns illuminated the streets. The grid shimmered more softly now. Silver and gold woven together in complex patterns. More balanced, more fluid, but still unpredictable. Once again, Leora stood on the balcony, watching the horizon. Kaelan joined her quietly. He rested his hands on the railing beside her. For several minutes they said nothing, because the sky itself seemed to be speaking. Finally he broke the silence. "They're waking faster than anyone predicted." Leora nodded. "They will not wait for permission." Wind moved through the tower arches. The silver thread beneath her skin flared softly again. Recognition, alignment, not command, response. Night settled across Orlaith. The vault beneath the tower hummed faintly. For centuries it had remained stable, silent. But tonight, multiple resonances echoed through its ancient chambers. Not one thread. Many, scattered across the world, answering, far beyond the western sea. A lighthouse flickered against crashing waves. But the light inside it did not move with the storm. It pulsed. Silver. Gold. Silver again. Inside the tower, a cloaked figure watched the distant horizon. Their face remained hidden in shadow, but their eyes reflected faint lines of light, threads, moving across the sky, connecting, evolving. The figure smiled faintly. Interesting. A voice murmured, very interesting. Back in Orlaith, Leora turned slowly from the balcony. The city's pulse had steadied, but the threads beyond the horizon continued stirring. Something was coming. Not an invasion, not a warning, an awakening. She lifted her hand slightly. The silver thread beneath her skin pulsed. Not to act, not to impose, only to align. The dawn over Orlaith was faintly violet, not harsh, not golden, soft, uncertain. Silver veins shimmered through the gold of the grid. Not fractures, not chaos. Alive, responsive. The city stirred. Birds lifted into the cool morning air. Children paused mid-step, drawn by a subtle hum. Merchants straightened wares, as if sensing a shift. Reports came from distant provinces. Unmarked threads pulsed unexpectedly, some faint, some violent, some individuals untrained, all aware. The council convened again. 7 elders gathered in the vaulted chamber of Crown Hall. Each voice carried the weight of centuries. Containment is necessary, one insisted. They are multiplying, another said. They are emerging, Leora corrected. And they are not bound by fear, she added softly. Kaelan stood near her, measured, ready. They will push the limits of the grid, he said. And the grid will adjust, she replied. A subtle pulse beneath her skin flared in quiet acknowledgement. Outside the city, a child stumbled over a shallow brook. Silver threads danced erratically around them. Not threatening, not controlled, responsive, curious. Somewhere in the vault beneath Orlaith, ancient mechanisms hummed. A distant resonance reached upward, silent, watching, waiting. Leora traveled to observe firsthand. No escort, no fanfare, just her and Kaelan. The grid thinned naturally in the outer rings of the city, and there it was. Disruption. A pattern misaligned, a thread reaching for the sovereign thread. The child's eyes met hers. Fear, confusion, power unchecked, not dangerous, unfinished. She knelt, hand lifted slowly. The thread beneath her skin pulsed. It aligned with the child. The chaotic arcs calmed, not suppressed, balanced, measured. Evening fell. Lanterns glowed softly across the streets. The vault thrummed quietly beneath the city. Not singular. Multiple threads resonated faintly across Orlaith, and far beyond the horizon, a presence watched. Something older. Not benevolent. Not malevolent. Expectant. Leora rose, Kaelan beside her. They stood quietly on the balcony. The silver thread beneath her skin pulsed again. Not to command, not to control, only to align. The threads beyond the horizon responded, slowly, measured, curious. Far away across mountains and seas, another figure stirred. A faint glimmer in the dark, silver light reflecting across the hood of a lone observer. Eyes sharp, silent. Interesting, the voice whispered. Very interesting. Back in Orlaith, Leora returned to the balcony as night fully settled. The city beneath her glowed with faint golden lines. Silver threads shimmered across rooftops. A subtle hum filled the air, a rhythm only those attuned could hear. The child's thread pulsed softly, not alone, not chaotic, aligned, somewhere far beyond the city. Other threads began moving, awakening, faint, unseen, and the sovereign thread continued to expand, across valleys, across forests, across lands that had never known its guidance. The world itself responded. The sovereign thread is reaching outward. New awakenings continue across the realm. Will these emergent threads align with Orlaith, or will they challenge the balance entirely? Silver seams streaked across the violet sky, thin, irregular, persistent. Each pulse left the city quieter afterward, magic recalibrating. Not destruction, not chaos, balance evolving. The council called it incidents. Leora called them awakening. Kaelan watched, measured, observant. The grid is evolving, she whispered. They call it weakening, an elder argued. Outside Orlaith, new unmarked threads surfaced. A 17-year-old girl triggered a surge while irrigating her fields. No casualties. Fear high. She was detained, not for punishment, for containment. That night, Leora visited her, not as sovereign, not as ruler, as witness. The girl's wrists were bare, eyes rimmed with red. "I didn't mean to," she whispered. "You are waking it," Leora said. The silver thread beneath her skin pulsed softly. Alignment, not force. The council chamber split. Integration versus containment. 4 elders demanded suppression. 3 favored guided evolution. The crown teetered. Balance no longer solely theirs. Far beyond Orlaith, another fracture flickered. Distant, measured, not accidental. A dark hand hovered above an ancient vault, guiding threads older than the crown. Waiting, watching. Back in Orlaith, rumors grew. Whispers of the unmarked. Not threats, but signs of change, authority shifting. On the balcony, Leora and Kaelan watched the horizon. "You are becoming a symbol," he said. "I did not choose this," she replied. Intent rarely governs outcome. The fractures pulsed faintly above, threads awakening beyond human reach. Night deepened, lanterns flickered, shadows stretched across streets and plazas. Somewhere in the distance, another unmarked stirred. A child, a farmer, a scholar, unaware of their growing connection. The grid pulsed faintly in response. Not control, not restriction. Recognition. Leora exhaled slowly. Silver thread beneath her skin shimmered in tune. Not to command, not to impose, only to align. Kaelan rested a hand on the balcony railing. Measured, steady. "Will they obey?" he asked softly. "They will not wait for permission," she said. Far to the east, the faintest glimmer appeared. A silver line across the horizon. Resonating. Threaded. Not ending. Expanding. The council scrambled to adjust. Whispers turned to arguments. Some sought immediate containment. Others urged observation. None understood the magnitude. In a small village outside the eastern provinces, a boy touched the soil. Silver threads wrapped around his fingers. He drew a breath and felt the pulse of something vast. Back in Orlaith, Leora sensed it immediately. Threads converging, threads awakening, the sovereign thread responding. The fractures above the city shimmered in acknowledgement. A lattice of silver and gold stretched across the violet sky, alive, interconnected, listening. Kaelan's eyes followed hers. "The grid is no longer predictable," he said quietly. "No," Leora replied. "It's learning." Above the distant mountains, an ancient observer stirred. Eyes opening behind a hood, hands weaving faint arcs of silver light. A smile, recognition, curiosity. The sovereign thread had reached beyond all expectation, and somewhere, unseen by mortal eyes, answers awaited. The city below remained unaware of the full scope, but the threads had already begun their work. Not dominance, not chaos. Balance, a new balance. Fragile, expanding, unpredictable. The crown was no longer absolute, the grid no longer confined. The world itself had begun to answer. The fractures are spreading. New awakenings ripple through the realm. Who truly holds authority now? The crown, the unmarked, or the threads themselves? Dawn never fully arrived. The sky above Orlaith hung heavy. A silver fracture split the violet morning light. Sharp, silent, waiting. Inside the council chamber, the vote had concluded. 4-3, containment protocol enacted, expanded authority, oversight of all Unmarked transferred to the crown, Leora included. Kaelan received the sealed directive. He did not break it immediately. Instead, he studied the script in silence, measured, patient, protective. Transfer orders moved Leora to controlled quarters, restricted access, formal review of her authority. In the vault beneath the sovereign tower, Leora felt threads pulse brighter than ever. "They're formalizing oversight," she murmured. "I will walk beside you," Kaelan replied. "Not deliver. Not seize. Walk." Exiting the vault, the silver thread beneath her skin pulsed in tune with the fractured sky. The council did not notice. The city did. First collapse. Western Residential District. Ward Tower sparks. Windows shattered. 3 mages fell unconscious. The grid flickered violently, silver surfacing like bone through gold. Second collapse. Outer agriculture ring. Then Northern Watchtower. Sequential. Deliberate. The council scrambled. Stabilization squads deployed. Amplification matrices activated. But Leora moved before she was told not to. Toward the epicenter. Toward the pulse. Silver threads aligned with her presence. The grid did not restore. It reconfigured. Gold reformed thinner, interwoven with silver. Fractures stabilized. Balance recalibrated. Council elders emerged onto balconies. Faces pale. Authority shaken. They had invoked total amplification, nearly destroying the city. The people saw it. Leora had stepped forward and steadied it. Later that night, the crown chambers were divided beyond repair. Containment protocol suspended. Authority fractured. Some elders demanded reinforcement. Others dismantled amplification entirely. On the balcony, under a scarred sky, Leora and Kaelan watched. "They will not attempt amplification again," he said. "No, they cannot risk it," she replied. "It was measured," she said. "Someone initiated it," he observed. "And stopped once they had data," she added. Far to the east, another silver line appeared. Distant, faint, resonating, threads awakening, not ending, expanding. Below, the city slowly resumed its rhythm. Lanterns flickered in muted gold. Streets smelled of smoke and ozone. Children slept despite the tremors. In the alleys, whispers spread. Stories of silver threads and the girl who had walked unafraid into the pulse. Not all understood. Few dared speak. The vault thrummed quietly. Multiple resonances, faint but persistent. Each pulse connected to distant threads beyond sight. The grid itself had begun listening. Not obeying, not controlling, aware. Leora traced her fingers along the balcony railing, cold marble beneath her touch. The silver thread beneath her skin flared faintly. Responsive, aligned, not commanding. Kaelan remained beside her, silent sentinel, watching the horizon, measuring, guarding. In the northern provinces, a lone boy lifted his gaze. Silver threads traced patterns through his fingers. He inhaled, and the grid pulsed back. Every awakening, every ripple, every spark of recognition. Answering. Night deepened over Orlaith. The fractures above shimmered in a lattice of silver and gold. Threads intertwined, expanding, alive. Above, an unseen observer withdrew their hand from a dark vault. Interest, not anger. The threads were no longer contained. Control was a relic. Observation was the new balance. The crown had fractured, authority diluted. The Unmarked continued to emerge, and far beyond, ancient eyes watched. If balance is no longer controlled, who decides its course? The crown, the Unmarked, or the threads themselves? The sky above Orlaith remained alive. Silver threads wove through gold like veins beneath skin. Not fractured, not broken, changed, responsive, alive. The crown framed it as restoration, a return to balance. The people knew better. They had witnessed the grid fracture. They had seen Leora step forward and steady it, without command, without decree, without rank. Reports arrived from distant provinces. Unmarked individuals surfaced, some calm, some unstable. All new, all awake. The council convened once more. Containment was no longer the question. Legitimacy was. If the unmarked multiply... They are emerging, Leora interrupted. Evolution, she whispered. And if evolution destabilizes civilization? Then civilization was built too rigid, she replied. Kaelan stood behind her, not as guard, not as enforcer, as presence, subtle, steady, aligned. That night the fractures above the city intensified. Silver threads stretched across the sky in a latticework of faint light, not tearing, connecting, alive, responsive. The vault pulsed in response, layered, multiple, resonating. Leora descended alone into the central core. The glowing threads of sovereigns appeared beneath fractured skies, and beneath them, another image emerged. 2 lines, interwoven, balanced, never singular. Leora reached toward the core. Silver light responded immediately. Beneath it, something older stirred. Memory of magic before structure. Flowing freely, unconfined. The grid had been built to regulate excess, not suppress potential. It had been designed to control. Now it listened. Above the palace, the sky split fully, a wide silver aperture open, not invasion, unveiling. Kaelan felt the shift. It's opening, he said quietly. Yes, she replied. Can you close it? Yes, he whispered. And? She asked. Should I? If she sealed it, the grid's dominance restored. Authority centralized, unmarked suppressed. If she let it widen, magic decentralized. Unmarked continued emerging. Authority transformed. What do you believe? He asked. Not what is safe, not what preserves the crown. What do you believe? I believe balance must be chosen, she said. Silver threads cascaded across the sky. Not lightning, not flame, alignment, responsive, alive. Across the city, sigils dimmed slightly, integrated, gold softened, silver wove through it, magic no longer pressed rigidly against the skin. It flowed, freedom, alive. In distant provinces, unmarked individuals felt permission awaken. Not a surge of power, not control, permission, potential unlocked, threads stirring in response. Far beyond a hidden observer withdrew their hand from a dark vault. Interesting, the voice murmured. Very interesting. Interest, not anger. Evolution creates variables, and variables could be shaped. The council felt it immediately. Authority diluted, the crown repositioned. Participant, not sole regulator. A choice lay before them. Resist and fracture entirely, or adapt and remain relevant. Silence was chosen. Acceptance, for now. In the plaza below, citizens lifted wrists. Marks glowed softly. Personal. Unique. The unmarked were no longer anomalies. They were variation, change, emergence. On the balcony, Leora and Kaelan stood. Aligned. Not ruler and guard. Not sovereign and captain. Aligned. Above them, silver and gold interwoven. Alive. Responsive. Threads answered faintly across distant lands. Emerging. Not synchronized. Not commanded. The sky remained open. Balance had shifted. From control to trust. Far beyond the horizon, unseen, a figure stepped into starlight. Ancient. Patient. Interesting, the voice murmured. Very interesting. The fracture created possibility, and possibility could be dangerous. If balance must be chosen rather than imposed, who bears the responsibility? The sovereigns? The people? Or something beyond all rule?